This is part 2 of our adolescent cognitive development lecture. So now we're going to talk about some gender differences in adolescence. So verbal ability. This is reading, spelling, grammar, oral comprehension, world fluency, and in general, females perform better than males on this. So is this due to genetic reasons or cultural reasons? Is it both? Well, differences do show up early. Even in infants and toddlers, we see better language abilities in girls. But these differences are also exaggerated by society and culture. For instance, parents talk more to baby girls. Girls have early language development, so they learn to rely on verbal interactions to relate to others. But what about reading? Why do girls seem to read better than boys do? There's a large influence of culture here. And the main thing is reading considered a masculine or a feminine ability? In countries where reading is looked at as a masculine ability, something that men do, Nigeria and England, for example, boys do better than girls on tests of reading skills. But in countries where it's considered feminine, like in the US and Canada, girls excel. So there seems to be a huge influence of culture of whether or not they see the activity as something that girls should be engaged in or if boys should be. And children tend to follow that culture. Visual spatial ability. This is the ability to visualize objects or shapes and mentally manipulate or rotate them. Okay. This is associated with hand-eye coordination, such as catching a ball, hitting a ball with a bat. Okay, so we need visual spatial abilities to do most sports. This is also important for fields such as architecture, engineering, art, etc. It's the ability to picture things in your brain. Okay. Boys tend to outperform girls starting as early as ages 8 or 9. But also think about the culture here. Are these tasks considered more masculine or feminine? And in our culture, at least, most of these tasks are considered more masculine. Gender stereotype toys increase this difference. Boys get building blocks and balls that help improve visual spatial ability, whereas girls get dolls and toys that help encourage language ability, not visual spatial ability. Mathematical ability. Okay, girls in elementary school actually perform better than boys, but that reverses in adolescence. So why is that? Why is it seen that elementary school girls do better than math at boys, but teenage girls do worse? Girls are actually slightly better at computation, like doing equations, but boys tend to do better in word problems and geometry, probably because those involve visualizing, and it goes back to those visual spatial skills. But are there cultural influences? Well, children tend to see more men in math-related fields and women in language fields. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Girls are told they aren't as good at math and science, so why should they apply themselves? A good book for this topic is that Pink Brain, Blue Brain. It talks about the differences that exist in boys and girls' brains, but how culture exaggerates those differences. So I have a couple of videos here. I would like you to watch these on your own time. Okay, so there's one video there. If you can't see it, let me know right away and I'll get that to you. And then I have another link here of another video for you to watch. So please watch those on your own times. And then I will post this discussion on Blackboard. So what do you think about the two videos? Are we doing something wrong with our girls? And what can we do to fix it? So please watch those two videos and add to the discussion. Next, we're going to switch to moral development. So just review, remember Kohlberg had 3 levels of moral development: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Okay, and Piaget had 2 levels, moral realism and moral relativism. I think we've talked about those before. Okay. So according to Kohlberg's theory, in adolescence we're now in the post-conventional morality. This is also known as principled morality. It is the moral code. So an individual adheres to a social contract only when he considers it valid. So personal morality is based on abstract principles of justice that fit personal worldviews, and those may not always conform to the society worldviews or society morals. So by age 16, stage 5, or this post-conventional morality, is shown by about 20% of adolescents, and stage 6 by 5%. But don't worry about stage 5 and stage 6. But what we're saying here is that by age 16, we still only see about a fifth of teenagers showing this post-conventional morality. Not everyone enters this highest level. Can you think of anyone like this? Someone who just doesn't seem to think at this higher moral level? Does this relate to how not everyone achieves formal operational thought? Do you think those two are connected? And maybe only people who can fully enter formal operations are capable of this level of moral reasoning? During adolescence, people begin to enter the post-conventional moral reasoning stage. These are the stages when they realize that morality is subjective and based on social contracts. So they think, I do things because it's good for society, and I do things because I believe they're right, even if the laws in society say differently. This post-conventional morality is really important for social change. It's when people are able to stand up and say, these laws, even though they exist, are wrong, they are not moral, and we need to change them. So Kohlberg says that most people never actually reach his final stage, and some adults still operate at pre-conventional morality. But the role of cognitive development here. So cognitive development enables children to take the viewpoints of others. Remember theory of mind. It allows them to role play, put themselves in other people's shoes. And so being able to have these new cognitive skills can help them empathize with other people more and help them think at a different level when it comes to their moral reasoning. They also need their social experience, and their culture influences this. So social experience plays a role, their awareness of different social states, for example, poverty. Just as they get experience in their world and they see different states of being, they get to know different types of people. Post-conventional reasoning is more likely to be found in urban cultural groups and in middle-class populations rather than in rural places or in lower or upper class. This higher level of moral reasoning is also more likely in Western countries. And why is this? It's important because does the culture emphasize the individual or the society? Does it put importance on taking responsibilities for others or not? The cultural values can influence the level of moral reasoning in people. So Kohlberg later removed his last stage of moral reasoning due to these cultural differences. But here's just a little graphic. So here's the pre-conventional. This is what we see in early childhood. This is the very egocentric morality. I do it because of me. The next two stages are the conventional morality. So they do it for social standing and because it's the law. And then we get to post-conventional morality, and it's because of the social contract, doing what's right for society and following your own moral code. So like I said, later in his career, he eliminated stage 6 completely because in some cultures they just didn't reach it. His theory was based on Western ideals. So now we're going to talk about Carol Gilligan. She had an alternative theory to Kohlberg's. She said that the socialization of boys and girls in our society leads to differences in their moral reasoning and behaviors. Her stages are the same as Kohlberg's, but she said that the transitions between these stages are fueled by changes in the sense of self rather than in changes in cognitive capability. So Kohlberg focused more on cognitive development, and Gilligan focused more on social development. So she said there are gender differences in morality. Kohlberg's theory was developed by interviewing white men, mostly. And so she wanted to know, was Kohlberg's test gender biased? Okay. And the answers given by girls would indicate that they were at a lower level on Kohlberg's scale than boys were. But when investigated closer, girls were showing the same level of moral reasoning. They were just making decisions based on different values. So they were still thinking about morals in the same way, but they had different priorities when making their decisions. So females were more likely to show a caring orientation, which means they made decisions based on taking care of other people. And males showed a justice orientation, they were making decisions based more on what was right and wrong. And Gilligan said that these gender differences are based on socialization. So girls are socialized into thinking and considering the needs of others, whereas boys are socialized to make judgments based on logic. Again, think about the things we give girls. We give them a baby doll. One of the first toys they get is a baby doll. So from a very young age, girls are being taught that their job is to take care of other people, whereas boys are taught more about logic and justice and right and wrong and thinking things through. So males tend to view morality in terms of justice and fairness. Boys are more likely to make decisions based on this idea of justice, based on the idea of right and wrong. Females, however, tend to view morality in terms of responsibility to others, self-sacrifice, and compassion. And girls are more likely to make decisions based on empathy and what is good for other people. So how do we help moral development? These studies have found that empathy is decreasing. Modern college students appear to show less empathy than previous generations. So why is this? Well, there are 4 likely factors. The first is that free play has declined. Children are spending less time outdoors and in unstructured activities with other children, and this means that they're just not connecting with each other as much. And if they can't connect with each other and learn how they think, then they're not going to develop as much empathy. Another reason would be increased time spent indoors, alone, and in front of screens. Research has shown that this increases aggression and decreases social skills. There's also the misuse of self-esteem. We've talked about the proper use of praise. So in our culture, we tend to be giving too many rewards to children, too much praise when it's unmerited, and this tends to increase narcissistic tendencies and decrease empathy. And the 4th likely reason is our culture is of dominant individualism and it glorifies competition. So it tells children that they need to be better than other children. And whenever you have a culture of competition, it decreases cooperation and altruism. So moral reasoning and altruism. Adolescents with higher levels of moral reasoning exhibit more moral behavior. So if they can think things through on the moral level, they are more likely to behave in a moral way. So if we can help them achieve higher levels of moral reasoning, that should increase their prosocial behavior. So how do we help them do that? Higher levels likely require formal operational thinking, and education plays a role in this. So education is a big part of this. We need to teach them how to empathize with other people, teach them how to consider other perspectives. Research in developing countries has shown that post-conventional reasoning is mostly absent. In developing countries, they just don't achieve this post-conventional morality. And why is this? It could be because of different values, like principles such as freedom and tolerance are important to Americans, but they're not universal. It could also be due to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In a country where you're just concerned with getting enough food for your family and just surviving, then you're not really thinking these higher level moral thoughts. So I had another discussion here, which is just how can we help? How do we help adolescents with this? And the biggest way is we got to discuss moral situations with them, have group discussions with their peers, let them pose ambiguous situations to them, let them discuss the morality of them, let them debate it. And they need to discuss these moral dilemmas with their parents as well. They need to hear about why things are wrong, not just that they are wrong. They need to be taught how to empathize and be encouraged to think about these situations and why they're moral or not. Okay, so we will continue this in the next video.